and I'm a husky.
Rapunzel, the tortoise and the hare, Little Red Riding Hood. Shoofly, don't bother me. Stories good for bedtime, stories through the day, stories short and long rides, stories let you play. Stories help to make you laugh, sometimes even cry. Stories good for any time, they help the day go by. I love stories, lots and lots of stories, stories that are told or read. I love stories, all kinds of stories, they get caught inside my head. I love stories, let's see some stories, that is how my brain gets fed. I love stories, tell again stories, especially when I go to bed. Hi, I'm Michael, and this is the story of Little Red Riding Hood.
But why did they call her Little Red Riding Hood?
Because she always wore her red cape and hood.
Oh, okay, tell us the story.
There once lived a little girl named Little Red Riding Hood, whose grandma was old and frail.
A visit from you would lift Grandma's spirits,
Said Little Red Riding Hood's mom.
Why don't you take this cherry pie and apple cider to her? Go through the woods, but don't stray from the path. And Little Red Riding Hood, don't talk to strangers.
Just as Little Red Riding Hood got into the woods, a wolf appeared.
What have you got there?
Oh, I'm taking this basket of goodies to Grandma's house.
Perhaps I could help you deliver it. Where does your grandma live?
Under the tall oak tree at the end of the path, but I'm strong enough to carry the basket on my own. Good day, Mr. Wolf.
When Little Red Riding Hood was out of sight, the tricky wolf took a shortcut to Grandma's house. He knocked lightly on the door.
Who is there?
Called Grandma.
It is I, Grandma,
Said the wolf in his best little girl voice.
Little Red Riding Hood. Lift the latch. I'm too weak to get out of bed.
When Grandma saw the wolf, she was given such a scare that she leaped straight out of bed and locked herself in the bedroom closet. The wolf put on Grandma's nightcap and glasses and lay down in her bed. A short time later, Little Red Riding Hood arrived and poked her head inside the door.
Grandma?
Hello, Little Red Riding Hood.
Called the wolf in his best grandma voice.
Come inside, dear. Bring me the basket you have.
Why, how did you know I have a basket?
I knew such a sweet granddaughter would not come to her grandma's without a gift.
Well, Mom says you will like the pie and cider better when they're warm.
Little Red Riding Hood slid the pie into the oven and placed the can of cider atop the stove.
How are you feeling, Grandma?
Oh, I feel quite frail today. How long does that pie need to warm, dear?
A little more. In the meantime, I will tell you about the flowers I saw in the woods.
Little Red Riding Hood began to talk about the flowers she had found in the woods and of her day at school.
When will that pie be ready?
The wolf sat up in bed.
Why, Grandma, what big ears you have!
The better to hear you with, my dear.
What big hands you have!
The better to hug you with, my dear.
What a terribly large mouth you have!
The better to eat that pie with.
The wolf leapt out of bed. He raced over to the oven and grabbed the pie. But Little Red Riding Hood had told her stories at such length that the pie was much too hot. The wolf chomped into it, and hot cherry sauce squirted onto his face.
Ah! It burns my tongue!
He snatched the can of apple cider from the top of the stove and gulped it down. But the apple cider had been heating much too long.
Ah! Ouch! It burns my throat!
He threw the can to the floor, ran across the room, and smacked his forehead on a wooden beam. As he fell to the ground, Grandma's nightcap and glasses flew off his face.
You nasty old wolf! Where is my grandma?
Just then, Little Red Riding Hood heard a sound from inside the closet.
Is it safe to come out?
Whispered Grandma.
Grandma!
Little Red Riding Hood opened the closet door and said,
Everything is all right now. That nasty old wolf tried to steal the cherry pie and apple cider I brought you, but he learned his lesson. Well, I am sure he did learn his lesson. When Wolf wakes up and his mouth cools down, offer him some more pie and cider. Maybe he really was hungry.
Little Red Riding Hood sliced 2 pieces of pie, then poured 2 cups of cider. She and Grandma ate and drank together. And when Wolf woke up and his mouth cooled down, he joined them. Little Red Riding Hood told stories of the forest. Grandma sat smiling all the while, for there was nothing she loved better than spending time with her granddaughter.
This story is Rapunzel. Once upon a time, there were a husband and wife. Their daughter, Rapunzel, had the most beautiful long and golden braided hair in the land. In the back of the couple's house was a small window overlooking a garden of enchanted herbs that belonged to an evil sorceress. One day, the husband's wife became very ill. Having no money for medicine, he sneaked into the sorceress's garden and grabbed a handful of the magic herbs, which he cooked and fed to his wife. Immediately, she became happy and well again. The husband felt guilty about taking something that didn't belong to him, even though he really needed those herbs for his wife. He summoned his courage and went to the sorceress's house.
I'll ask for her forgiveness,
He thought,
I'm sure everything will be fine.
but it just didn't work. The sorceress was very angry.
How dare you steal my herbs?
She said,
You must pay for this.
I took them only because my wife was ill. I'm so sorry, sorceress.
Not good enough. I require your daughter, Rapunzel.
that girl with the incredible hair.
Help me with my chores tomorrow. Then I will consider your debt fully repaid.
Rapunzel's father agreed. After all, it was only one day. The next morning, when Rapunzel knocked on the sorceress's door, she was told to climb up a staircase into the top of the tower. Why? She asked the sorceress.
This is your father's punishment.
Said the sorceress.
You are my prisoner. If you wish to eat and drink, listen for these words. Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair. When you hear them, release your long golden braids. I will use them to climb into the tower.
The tower had only a little window. There was no escape. Rapunzel obeyed the sorceress's wishes and climbed up into the tower. Besides, she was getting hungry. Some time later, a handsome prince passed by the tower. Suddenly, he heard a lovely song. It was the sound of Rapunzel's voice, for she passed her time alone in the tower, singing songs. Her song touched the prince's heart so deeply that he rode back to the tower every day to listen. Once he heard the sorceress call out,
Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair.
Then the prince saw Rapunzel's beautiful golden braids tumble down the side of the tower. He watched as the sorceress climbed up, up, up the golden braids into the tower window. The next day, the prince waited for the sun to go down, then rode back to the tower. When he heard the lovely singing, he called out,
Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair.
Out of the window tumbled the golden braids, which the prince climbed lightly and swiftly. When he entered through the window, he said to Rapunzel,
I have come to rescue you from the sorceress. Come with me.
But I cannot get down from the tower. You can jump a long way, but I cannot. I know what to do. Every time you come see me, you must bring a yard of silk. When I have sewn together 20 yards, it will be enough to reach the ground.
For 19 evenings thereafter, the prince brought Rapunzel a yard of silk. On the 20th day, before the sun had set, the sorceress found in Rapunzel's room a piece of silk so rare and so wonderful that it could belong only to a prince.
How dare you?
She exclaimed. Holding Rapunzel's braids, she cut them off. Then the sorceress ordered the tower guards to take Rapunzel deep into the forest. That evening, the sorceress took the cut braids and tied them to the tower window. Soon, the prince arrived and called out,
Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair.
Out tumbled the braids and up climbed the prince. But instead of finding Rapunzel in the tower, he found the sorceress. Before she could cast an evil spell, the prince jumped to the ground and rode away as fast as his horse could carry him. After he rode many miles, he heard a familiar song in the distance. Could it be? Could it be? Yes, it was the most lovely sound. Rapunzel, Rapunzel! The prince rode up to a girl sitting beside a stream. He did not recognize her.
It's me,
Said the girl.
Rapunzel. The sorceress has snipped my hair.
But I have found you.
Said the prince.
That's all that matters.
But how can you love me without my beautiful golden braids?
Said Rapunzel.
It is your voice that touched my heart.
Said the prince. Together they rode to the prince's kingdom, and the prince sent immediately for Rapunzel's mother and father. The prince and Rapunzel were married, and soon Rapunzel's hair returned as golden and beautiful as before. From that day forth, she sang only songs of joy and cheer, and they all lived happily ever after.
I'd like to tell everyone one of my favorite stories.
Oh, goody!
This story has a real live princess in it.
Wow!
Well, maybe she's a princess. We'll find out. The Princess and the Pea, read by Sarah Lynn. Once upon a time, there was a charming young prince who wanted to find a lovely young woman to be his bride, his princess. There was one rule of the kingdom, however. This bride would have to be a real, honest-to-goodness, genuine, authentic princess. The prince searched and searched and searched for his heart's desire. He looked throughout his kingdom. No one. He searched all over the whole world. But alas, nowhere could he find what his heart truly wanted. There were princesses enough, but it was difficult to know if they were real, honest-to-goodness, genuine, authentic princesses. There was always something about them that just wasn't as it should be. So he returned to his kingdom again, discouraged, dismayed, and very disappointed. How could he find his lovely young bride? How could he even know a real princess when he met one? What do you think, Eddie? That's a tough one, Sarah Lynn.
Ribbit.
Hey, Freddie thinks it's a tough one, too. What happens next, Sarah Lynn? Well, one evening there was a terrible storm. Thunder crashed, boom! Lightning bolted, and the rain poured down in torrents. Suddenly, a knocking was heard at the palace gate. The old king got up from his chair by the fireplace and went to open it. He opened the door and was aghast. The king called his queen to see the sight. There was a young woman standing in front of the gate. My goodness, look what the rain and the wind had done to her. The water ran down from her soggy hair and dripped from her drenched clothes. It ran down into the toes of her mucky, moist shoes and squished out again at the heels. The shivering young woman spluttered,
Oh, I'm so sorry to bother you, Your Highness, but I was traveling the countryside on my kingdom's business. For you see, I am a princess, and I got caught in this horrific torrential rain. Oh, I was wondering if I could find shelter in your palace until I can continue on my royal business. I would be so appreciative.
and she curtsied very nicely, as if she knew what to do.
Well, we'll soon find out if she is a real princess,
thought the wise old queen. So they let her in. The queen scurried into the guest bedroom with her lady-in-waiting, took all the bedding and the mattresses off the bedstead, and laid one single tiny pea on the box spring. Then the queen and her lady-in-waiting took 20 mattresses and laid them one by one by one by one on top of the pea, then added 20 down quilts on top of the mattresses, and then added one lovely royal blanket. The queen smiled. After warming herself by the fire and eating a delicious dinner, the lovely young princess went to the guest bedroom for the night. She climbed up the royal ladder left by the queen, up, 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 onto the very top of the bed, and snuggled beneath the royal blanket, exhausted and ready for a good night's sleep. In the morning, over breakfast, the queen asked the lovely young princess if she really was a real, honest-to-goodness, genuine, authentic princess.
How did you sleep?
Oh, very poorly, said the princess.
I have scarcely closed my eyes all night. I am sure there was something under my mattress. It must have been very hard because I am black and blue all over.
Now the wise old queen knew this young woman, who just happened to come to the palace door, was a real, honest-to-goodness, genuine, authentic princess. Only a real princess could feel the tiny pea through 20 mattresses and 20 down quilts. Not just anybody could be that sensitive. Finally, her son could end his long search. So the prince took the lovely young princess for his wife, for now he knew that he had a real, honest-to-goodness, genuine, authentic princess. The pea was put in a museum so everyone in the kingdom could see how something so small brought a world of happiness to their prince. The end.
I wonder what it would be like to build our own little house. What color would we make it?
We could build a green treehouse.
What about a snow fort?
We could build all sorts of things. Here's a story about 3 little pigs and their building adventure. Once upon a time, there was a mother pig with 3 little sons. They lived in a small, quiet village. The 3 brother pigs played together every day and skipped through the village, talking, laughing, and bringing home food for their mother. They didn't know that a nasty wolf was often spying on them, watching from around corners and peeking at them from behind trees. Oh! One day, the 3 little pigs had grown big enough to live in houses of their own. Their mother told them to find 3 good spots to build 3 strong houses that would not budge, not one bit, no matter what happened. So each of the pigs chose a good spot for a strong house and then went to the village to find something to build it with. The first pig decided to build his house with straw. The straw was light and easy to build with, and the pig finished his house in just 2 hours. When he was done, he ran off to play. The second pig decided to build his house with sticks. The sticks were heavier than straw, but still very light and easy to build with, and the pig finished his house in only 3 hours. When he was done, he ran off to play too. The third pig decided to build a house of bricks. He bought piles and piles of bricks. His 2 brothers watched him unloading them and teased him for making a silly choice.
Our houses are already built.
It will take you days to build a house of bricks.
Yes, but it will be strong and it won't budge, not one bit. He started mortaring the bricks together as his 2 brothers went off to play. When the third pig was finished building his house 3 days later, he looked at it and decided it was just the way he wanted. The next morning, the nasty wolf sneaked up to the door of the first pig's straw house.
Little pig, let me in.
Recognizing the wolf's voice, the pig said,
Not by the hair of my chinny chin chin.
Then I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house in.
So Wolf huffed a great huff, and he puffed a great puff, and the pig's straw house came crashing down. The pig went racing off towards his brother's house made of sticks and reached it just before the wolf caught up with him.
Little pigs, let me in.
Not by the hair of our chinny chin chins,
said the 2 trembling pigs.
Then I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house in.
So he huffed a great huff, and he puffed a great puff, and the house made of sticks came crashing down. The 2 pigs went racing off to their brother's house made of bricks and reached it just before the wolf caught them.
Little pigs, let me in.
Not by the hair of our chinny chin chins.
Then I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house in.
So he huffed a great huff, and he puffed a great puff. But the house made of bricks did not budge, not one bit.
I said I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house in.
And again, he huffed a great huff. He puffed a great puff. But the house made of bricks did not move at all. It did not budge. Not one bit.
This time, I'm serious.
The wolf huffed and he puffed harder than he ever had in his entire life. So hard that he used up all his breath. The wolf fell to the ground and didn't wake up for several hours. When he woke, he looked again at the house made of bricks and opened his mouth to begin huffing and puffing harder than ever. Then he stopped and said,
Oh, never mind.
and slumped off into the woods.
You were right to work so long and hard on your house,
Said the first pig to his brother.
We should have been wiser and built our houses properly, too.
Said his other brother. They had learned a very important lesson. It always pays to do something properly, even if it takes a little more time. The next day, the 3 pigs went into the village together, bought lots of bricks, and used them to rebuild the 2 houses the wolf had blown down, so they would never budge. Not one bit. They lived happily ever after, and that old wolf, he never bothered them again.
This is the story of Eddie and the cornstalk.
I thought it was Jack and the Beanstalk.
Lots of people think that, but here's how it really goes. Once upon a time, Eddie planted 3 seeds of corn and waited for 1 whole minute. Man, all that work for nothing. Why aren't there 3 big tall stalks with nice juicy ears of corn yet? I'll ask Farmer Jed. He'll know. Wow! Look at your corn patch! What super humongo supermo gigantico corn! How do you make it grow, Farmer Jed?
Well, all it takes is a little time, a little patience, and just 1 little drop of my special plant food.
That's exactly what I need. Could I borrow some?
All right, Eddie. But remember, just 1 little drop.
I'll remember. And Eddie did remember. Sort of, kind of, halfway. If 1 little drop makes the corn grow tall, I wonder what 2 little drops will do. Maybe 5 or 6 or 49. Or maybe Farmer Jed meant to say 1 whole bottle. Eddie was so tired from all the work, he decided to take a rest, and he fell fast asleep. Higher and higher his corn stalks grew. Suddenly, Eddie found himself in an amazing land where everything was giant-sized, including the people.
Fee, fi, fo, fum. I smell the smell of a lawn chair.
How'd you grow this humongo supermo gigantico garden?
All it takes is a little time, a lot of patience, and never more than 1 little drop of my special plant food.
I was afraid you were going to say that. And just then, in the blink of an eye, the corn stalks had grown so fast, so far, so tall, that the roots couldn't hold them up. Oh, what a dream! Or was it?
I see you used more than 1 little drop.
Next time, I'm going to use a little time and a lot more patience.
Looks like you'll be eating cream corn for a long time. And corn ice cream, corn soda pop, corn cookies, corn sandwiches, corn, corn, corn.
And that is the end. Maggie Locks and the Three Bears. There once lived a little girl who liked to skip through the woods collecting flowers in her basket. One morning, she put on her shoes, placed her basket over her wrist, and skipped outside into the sunshine, singing a pretty tune. It was such a lovely day that she skipped farther along than usual, and at one point she realized she was quite lost. Looking to her left, she saw nothing but unfamiliar trees. Looking to her right, she saw nothing but an unfamiliar path leading deeper into the woods. Then she turned around and saw a small house. She went up to the house and knocked on the door. No one answered, so she called,
Hello? Is anyone home? I've come too far into the woods and I don't know my way back home.
Again, no answer came. Maggie Locks was tired and also getting hungry, so she pushed the door just a little and it swung open with a little sound. Maggie Locks did not realize that the house she had entered belonged to the Three Bears. They had gone out for a morning walk, just as she had. It was berries they liked to pick, not flowers, and the basket they used was much bigger than hers. Maggie Locks walked into the kitchen and saw 3 bowls of porridge resting on the table. Though she knew it was naughty to take other people's things, she was so hungry from her long walk that she said to herself,
Perhaps I'll just have a small bite, and that will be enough to satisfy me until I find my way back home.
She took a taste of porridge from the great big bowl.
Oh, that's too hot,
she said, putting the spoon down. Then she tried a taste from the middle bowl.
Oh, that's too cold,
she said, putting this spoon down too. But the porridge in the teeny tiny bowl was delicious, not too hot and not too cold.
That's just right,
she said. Before she knew it, Maggie Locks had eaten the entire bowl of porridge. Getting up from the table, she saw 3 very comfortable-looking chairs standing in a row in the next room. She went over to them. First, she climbed up onto the great big chair.
Oh, that's too hard,
she said, hopping down. She tried the middle chair next.
Oh, too soft,
she said. Then she tried the teeny tiny chair, which was perfect. Not too hard and not too soft.
Oh, that's just right,
she said. Maggie Locks was getting sleepy, so she walked up the stairs where she saw 3 beds.
Perhaps I'll have just a little nap before finding my way back home,
she said. She climbed up onto the great big bed.
Oh, that's too high,
she said, jumping off. Then she tried the middle bed.
That's too low,
she said. Finally, she lay down in the teeny tiny bed, which was not only a good height, but also the most comfortable bed she had ever been in.
Oh, that's just right,
she said. A few moments later, Maggie Locks was asleep. Soon, the 3 bears arrived home from their walk. As they placed their large basket of berries in the kitchen, they noticed something different.
Someone has been eating my porridge,
said Papa Bear in his big, booming voice.
Someone has been eating my porridge,
said Mama Bear in her small, gentle voice.
Someone has been eating my porridge,
said Baby Bear.
And it's all gone.
Then the 3 bears noticed that the chairs in the next room, which usually stood in a row, were all out of place.
Someone has been sitting in my chair,
said Papa Bear in his big, booming voice.
Someone has been sitting in my chair,
said Mama Bear in her small, gentle voice.
Someone has been sitting in my chair,
said Baby Bear.
and it's fallen right over onto the floor.
The 3 bears climbed the stairs and noticed that their beds, which were usually tidy, had been messed up.
Someone has been lying in my bed,
said Papa Bear in his big, booming voice.
Someone has been lying in my bed,
said Mama Bear in her small, gentle voice.
Someone has been lying in my bed,
said Baby Bear.
and she's still in it. Oh!
shouted Maggie Locks, waking to see the 3 bears standing in front of her. She was frightened and felt very worried about the things she had done.
Who are you?
said Papa Bear in his big, booming voice.
My name is Maggie Locks.
Where do you live?
said Mama Bear in her small, gentle voice.
At the other end of the woods.
What are you doing here?
asked Baby Bear.
In our house.
Well, I got lost while picking flowers,
said Maggie Locks.
and now I can't find my way home. I'm sorry for all the naughty things I've done. I was very hungry and very tired.
The 3 bears, who were very nice bears, thought about this together and came up with an idea. They asked Maggie Locks what kind of things her mother liked to bake. Maggie Locks said her mother liked to bake gingerbread cookies.
We shall help you find your way home,
said Papa Bear.
Bears can smell things much farther away than people can,
said Mama Bear.
And on the way,
said Baby Bear.
we can pick berries together.
So the 3 bears followed the smell of gingerbread cookies and helped Maggie Locks find her way home. On the way, Maggie Locks showed the 3 bears where to find the prettiest flowers, and Baby Bear showed Maggie Locks where to find the most delicious berries. When she arrived home, Maggie Locks' basket was spilling over with flowers and berries of all kinds. Her mother thanked the 3 bears for bringing Maggie Locks home safely and sent them off with 3 gingerbread cookies. And from that day on, whenever she went skipping through the woods to collect flowers, Maggie Locks always paid a visit to the 3 bears.
Would you like to tell us a story, Michael?
Yes! My favorite story is about how a clever crow helps his friends in the forest.
Oh, wow, Michael.
Oh, helping his friends.
Tell us your story.
Okay. There once lived a kindly old crow in a big leafy tree. This crow had enjoyed a good, happy life, and during his years, he had received help from many other crows. When he was just a baby, his mother and father had brought him food to eat. When he was growing up, his big brothers and big sisters had played games with him and taught him how to soar high above the ground. When he was grown up, his friends showed him interesting places to see and introduced him to other birds who lived nearby, like sparrows, hummingbirds, woodpeckers, and pelicans. He now spent every morning searching for ways to help other birds. Sometimes he would bring worms to Mommy and Daddy Robins with babies. Sometimes he would visit young hawks and teach them fun games, or show them how to fly high above the ground with their wings spread wide. One morning, the kindly old crow visited a Mommy and Daddy eagle who had a baby eagle that needed to eat worms and drink water to grow. But it had not rained in several days, and the Mommy and Daddy eagle had run out of water.
Don't worry,
said the kindly old crow.
I will find you some water and be back just as fast as my old wings will take me.
He flew through the woods searching for water, but the land was very dry. Finally, he came upon an old pitcher lying at the edge of a dried-up pond. The kindly old crow floated down, looked inside the pitcher, and saw that there was water at the bottom of it. But when he tried to lift the pitcher, he found that it was stuck in the dry mud.
What did the kindly old crow do? He couldn't lift a pitcher.
I know. Baby Eagle must be really thirsty by now.
The kindly old crow remembered something his friend the pelican had taught him. When pelicans needed to take water from one place to another, they carried it in the bottom of their beaks. The kindly old crow stuck his beak inside the pitcher. But the water was too far down, and he couldn't reach it. He wondered what to do.
Oh no, the baby eagle!
What did the kindly old crow do, Michael?
The kindly old crow saw some pebbles lying on the ground. He had an idea. He took a pebble in his beak and dropped it into the bottom of the pitcher. The water rose a little bit higher. Then he took another pebble and dropped it into the pitcher. Again, the water rose just a slight bit. The kindly old crow gathered a dozen pebbles at his side and then began to drop them one after another into the pitcher. Finally, the water rose high enough for him to reach. Remembering how his friend the pelican had done it, the kindly old crow drew the water into his beak and flew back to the Mummy and Daddy Eagle, whose baby was now very thirsty. He gently passed the water from the bottom of his beak into the baby eagle's mouth. The baby eagle smiled as she drank, and the Mummy and Daddy Eagle, seeing that their baby was happy and no longer thirsty, smiled too. They thanked the kindly old crow, who said he was always happy to do them a favor. Then he went home to rest, happy with his day. Even though he was an old crow, he had learned a new lesson. It's always fun to solve a problem in an old way, but finding new ways to do things can be the most fun of all.
The old crow was smart. He thought about the problem and remembered things he'd learned from his friends.
The old crow was kind, too, helping the eagle family. Great story, Michael.
Thanks.
Once upon a time, there was a very cute and very green little frog.
Ribbit.
That's right, Freddie, just like you. Freddie, I mean Froggy, lived in a pretty pond. But he was the only froggy, and he was a lonely froggy. Poor Froggy. He wanted to find a place he wouldn't be so alone.
Ribbit.
And just then, Froggy was sure he found just what he was looking for. This might be the pond. Quack, quack, said Mama Duck as she gave her ducklings their singing lessons. Frog had joined the class.
Quack, 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 quack.
Mama Duck knew something just wasn't right. The one on the end was greener and not as feathery as the others. Are you sure this is where you want to be? Asked Mama Duck of the frog.
Oh, yes. You betcha.
But Mama Duck wasn't so sure.
Froggy,
Come on over here. Lucky for Froggy, some good friends came to help. They taught Froggy how to be a duck.
The first thing you do is start walking like a duck.
Then you quack.
Quack, 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 quack.
But all Froggy got was a frog in his throat.
Go on, Froggy. You can do it.
Poor Froggy. Even he could tell it just wasn't working. And then, could it be? Froggy wondered, has he found what he was looking for? And it was!
Ribbit, 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 ribbit.
Froggy had finally found what he was looking for. He had found the friends he didn't know he had. He didn't need to be a duck. He could just be a frog.
Ribbit.
Yay! At last, Froggy was just where he wanted to be. And they all lived happily ever after. The end. Eddie, do you want to tell a story?
Sure. I like to run fast. I'm going to tell a special story about a race.
We want to hear it. Tell your story, Eddie.
Okay, the tortoise and the hare. Once upon a time, there was a hare who always boasted how he could run faster than anyone else. He was forever teasing his old friend Tortoise for his slowness. Then one day, Tortoise couldn't take Hare's constant teasing anymore and answered back,
Who do you think you are, Hare? There's no denying that you are very swift, but even you can be beaten.
The hare could not believe his very large furry ears and just squealed in laughter. Beaten in a race? By whom? Not you, Tortoise. Surely not you. I bet there is no one in this forest and even the world who can win in a race against me. I am a very speedy sprinter. But why don't you try, Tortoise? Annoyed by such bragging, the tortoise accepted Hare's challenge. A course was planned, and the next day at dawn, they stood at the starting line. Bang! The race started! The hare yawned sleepily as the tortoise trudged meekly off. When the hare saw how painfully slow Tortoise was, he decided, half asleep on his feet, to have a quick nap. Take your time, Tortoise, said Hare. I'll have 40 winks and still have plenty of time to cross the finish line before you. Tortoise just kept walking and thought to himself,
Slow and steady wins the race.
After a while, Hare awoke with a start from a fitful sleep and gazed around looking for Tortoise. He saw him a little in front. The poor creature had not even covered a third of the course. Breathing a sigh of relief, the hare decided that he might as well have his breakfast, and he scampered away to munch on some crunchy cabbage and carrots he'd found in Farmer Jed's field. He ate as much as he could, and the big meal made him sleepy, and the hot sun made his eyelids droop. With a careless glance at Tortoise, now halfway through the course, he decided to have another snooze before zooming past Tortoise at the finishing line. Hare fell fast asleep and was soon snoring happily. The sun started to sink below the horizon, and the tortoise, who had been plodding towards the finish line since early morning, was a yard from the end of the race. At that point, the hare woke with a jolt. Ah! When he saw Tortoise was just a speck in the distance, Hare leapt to his paws and started to run. He leapt and bounced with as much speed as he could muster, gasping for breath.
But the hare's effort was far too late. Tortoise had beaten him. Tired and in disgrace, Hare slumped down beside the victorious Tortoise, who was smiling kindly at him.
Slow and steady wins the race.
Slow and steady wins the race,
He said. Hare learned his lesson that day.
That was a great story, Eddie. The tortoise did his best, and he ended up winning even though he was slow. But he was slow and steady, and he won the race.
Please, little fly, go away. I don't want to play just now.
What's wrong, Eddie?
Oh, this fly won't leave me alone. And Michael and I want to play catch.
Let's all nicely ask the fly to go away. Shoo fly, don't bother me. Shoo fly, don't bother me. Shoo fly, don't bother me. I belong to somebody.
That fly has gone away. At last, I'm free to play. I told that pest to scram. Now I'm as happy as a clam.
Shoo fly, don't bother me. You're not my cup of tea. Please stop annoying me. Kindly go and let me be.
I think I'll find a nook, curl up and read a book. Some nice and quiet spot. Some place where that fly is not.
Shoo fly, don't bother me. Go fly to Tennessee. Leave on the count of 3. Can't you see you're bugging me?
I need to go outside and find a place to hide. My plan had better work, or I'll really go berserk.
Shoo fly, don't bother me. Please leave immediately. Fly far away from me. I don't want your company.
My tummy has a hunch that it could use some lunch. I think the coast is clear. No more buzzing in my ear.
Shoo fly, don't bother me. Go and find your family. Go hide up in a tree. Just don't stay and pester me.
I really need a rest from that unwelcome guest. I'd better take a nap, otherwise I think I'll snap.
Shoo fly, don't bother me. Go spread your wings and flee across the great blue sea, all the way to Waikiki.
I'm beat without a doubt. That fly has worn me out. So now I'll close my eyes. Hope that I don't dream of flies.
Shoo fly, don't bother me. Shoo fly, don't bother me. Shoo fly, don't bother me. I belong to somebody.
Come again another day, fly. We can play then. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, fly.
Bye, fly.
Bye.
Bye, fly.
This is a really good story that Farmer Jed told me. When Farmer Jed was a boy, he lived in a village by the ocean. It was a small town with steep streets, old houses, and rocky paths that led down to the beach. The story is really about his friend. Let's call him Eddie.
Oh, yeah, a story about Eddie. A story with me in it? Great! Tell us, Michael.
Okay. Eddie loved exploring caves in the cliffs along the beach. And all summer long, he would go down to the beach, pick a favorite cave, and sort of fix it up with stuff. Ropes he found, shells, stones,
driftwood, seaweed, and even an old chair he found.
Did he invite Farmer Jed to visit his caves?
Yes, sometimes. But Farmer Jed mainly went away in the summer to work on his family's farm. So, one day, toward the end of the summer, Eddie walked into a cave where he'd not been before. Immediately, a big booming voice came from the back of the cave.
Who is trespassing in my cave?
Eddie was frightened and let out a squeak.
Eee! It's me, Eddie.
The big voice boomed out again.
To see my cave, you will need to give me a treasure.
Eddie searched his pockets and found a bit of string, a couple of shells, and some old wax from a candle. Eddie called out,
I'm putting my treasure on the rock by the entrance. It's all I have.
The voice boomed.
Okay, now sit down and wait for me.
Eddie sat down. He was shivering with fear, wondering who is in this cave. Slowly, so slowly, out came a very large, rather bent-over old man, wearing a great green coat. Eddie thought it looked like a dragon skin coat. The old man looked at the trembling Eddie by the rock and let out a huge roaring laugh.
I really scared you, didn't I?
Eddie nodded weakly.
I'm really not a monster, though I act a bit like a dragon in a cave, pretending to breathe fire at people with my words and voice.
Eddie relaxed a bit. He was rather interested in this odd dragon person, so he asked,
What is your name?
The old man in the green dragon coat roared out,
My name is Ivan Imapufsky.
but he added more quietly.
Most people just call me Puff.
Eddie asked.
Do you live here?
Puff explained.
I don't have any other home, so I live here. I'm really rather lonely and could use a friend.
Well,
Said Eddie.
then tell me about yourself.
A couple of hours later, when Eddie had to hurry home for dinner, he and Puff had become friends. As Eddie left, Puff called out.
Eddie, you could come and visit me again.
Eddie shouted back,
I sure will.
and the rest of that summer, Eddie and Puff explored caves, built sandcastles, sailed in a boat, fished, and just sat and talked.